a 12-step workshop, and we want to leave it for posterity, and we didn't record the first one, which was step 1 and 2, so we're going to revisit it. It would probably be very different than the first time anyway. So the first step, obviously, is the key. Being convinced, believing with certainty that we are powerless over alcohol, and then other people find it connected with drugs or sexual behavior or eating or something. But there's an admittance to that, and that our lives have become unmanageable. And in a way, it's a reflective step, because you're going to reflect on how it was like, or what it was like while in active alcoholism. And then there's plenty of evidence there, if there wasn't an unbiased jury and judge, that you would have come to this conclusion probably way earlier. But we finally reached that point. And so the thing with my experience, I like the way it's said in how it works, that there's an admittance to the innermost self. Because I found I used to admit, when it was conveniently, that I was a drug addict or an alcoholic quite a lot, quite flippantly. But when it was finally there was an admittance to the innermost self, I didn't comply with that admittance. Something revealed to me a whole lot about me, really. And the fact that had always been there was brought to light, and that perhaps there was a new way, instead of denying and avoiding and distracting myself from those facts that I am powerless over alcohol and that my life's unmanageable. I would now align with that as a fact, and I found what came after doesn't change that the fact it's a fact, but it sure changes how we travel later. And again, also, when I came in, I had a story going that most of my unmanageability was caused by drinking and using, and I had a lot of rude awakenings about that. My main thrust was cocaine use, and I really believed a lot of my patterns would stop as soon as I stopped using cocaine. And that assumption, like many, was proven to be incredibly incorrect. So a lot of times, without knowing it, we're dominated by a condition, and I believe how the domination withstands a lot of investigation and a lot of pointing it out by others, and a lot of even self-reflection is we're in the act of being identified as the basis of the disease. So I believe alcoholism sort of lands on another obsession, which is the mental state's obsession with being a self, or being a doer or a thinker and a feeler, seer, hearer, taster, toucher. So the emphasis is always on the one who has the problem, not the problems. Or the emphasis is always on, but then in another way, the emphasis is always on the fires and never to the fire starter. So to me, alcoholism is an amplification of that self-centeredness. And then basically, it's sort of like a add-on that makes the self-centeredness extreme version of self-centeredness. And self-centeredness, taken to the extreme, demands relief. Its basis is an uncomfortable malaise or discomfort that, when it goes into its extreme states, is an irritability, restlessness, and discontent that's impact seems so profound we're almost apt to do anything to try to get relief from it. And being led by the problem leads us to its solutions, usually pivoting on a point of fuck it, and it leads us to getting its fuel, basically. So it uses us to drive to the store. It uses us to pick up the alcohol. It uses us to drink it. And then when the shit hits the fan, we're the ones who have to be accountable to all that shit. unbeknownst to us, we're apt to keep doing the same old because we never get to the exact nature of the wrong. We really don't. So the wrong just keeps on wronging, so to speak. And maybe what we call a better life is that we learn how to manage it better or try to subdue it or keep it from acting out on such a large scale, like weddings and fucking, first interviews at job situations, or I hate my girlfriend, which would be a real mistake to be saying. All that stuff, and basically think, oh, that's great. Now my life's pretty good. I've got some money and stuff like that, and that's all fine and dandy. We can learn how to live with the disease. But then some people can't learn how to live with the disease. And AA includes those people also. So those people may need to find the exact nature of the wrong. They may need to have to get to causes and conditions because of their, let's say, sensitivity and intensiveness. The littlest stream of irritable, restless, and discontent seems to be really loud. So they have to they're called to go to greater lengths in a sense, because they don't want to live with the disease. They don't want to live as the disease, really. And so AA also provides a mechanism for that to occur. So basically, the ceilings of the program are based on the person who's in the program, really. So the higher power, can allow you to not act out at a picnic on July 4th and fucking get home and feel very successful about that. And the same higher power may afford you an incredible ability to enjoy peace of mind. It's just basically how far you want to go, really. So the first step was reflective, and then I found in hindsight that the unmanageability was really caused by my mental managing, really. And I actually saw that obviously drinking alcohol was a solution to alcoholism. That's what it was. I was wanting to get out of something. I didn't know what, but I wanted to get out of that discomfort and that constantly being the object of all the thoughts. And my solution to that was the fuel for the disease. I mean, who would have thunk? But I called it medicine, really. To it, I think the alcoholism, it's superfood. So as soon as I introduced alcohol and drugs to it, that mental obsession now started to be aligned with a physical craving in a weird way. And of course, the solution of AA about not drinking was obviously the mental obsession is first and then the physical craving. So like they used the example of, having an allergy of strawberries. If you don't eat the strawberries, you're not going to have thousands of skillful means to try to minimize the rash that breaks out when I eat strawberries. But see, strawberries aren't talking to us all day about you should eat strawberries. Yeah, this disease is a little different, that it has two aspects: the mental obsession that leads us to do that anyone in their right mind would fucking not do. So I see it as an image of a parasitical movement. The parasite, its own nature, is quite hostile to whatever host it's taking over. So it obviously has to have an incredible strategy to sort of subdue or neutralize the host's natural inclination to throw it off, which is it talks to us as us. It convinces us that we're it. Yeah? And so basically, as soon as you're bonded to self, now you're thinking as self. You're defending self. You're taking self's point of view. You're being directed by self's GPS. And so basically, you're in a way being used for transportation, literally, and without knowing it. Because if you knew it, you would throw the fucker off. But if you're identified as something, you can't entertain being free from it. You just can't. You can entertain being free as it, yeah, or free through it, or buy it, but you can't hit the point, the real point of relief, which is being, free from it. As it says in our book, please relieve us of this bondage of self. The bondage of self is an activity that convinces us that we're self, yeah? So the bondage is the whole thought system and the memories and the perceptions that only see things. And so we're constantly being held as a thing, yeah? And then the dilemma is we become identified as that thing, and then we sooner or later want to get out of the thing, but as the thing, which was captured perfectly in our community, self can't get out of self. So what's one to do? You have this imperative, you feel super uncomfortable, and maybe you come to the realization, I can't get out of me as me. Well, what's the only way supposedly out? Well, it has to be questioning, are you in, really? If you're not in, then the necessity to get out isn't a necessity anymore, and you might find you're quote-unquote out of self when you've looked at it as not being in self. That's how it happened with me, yeah? I had tried to get out of Paul as Paul for so freaking long. I used the vehicle of drugs, alcohol, reading fantasy, science fiction, spirituality, back to drugs and alcohol. I've attempted to escape from me as me many, many times. And the one that I really committed 100% to was drug addiction. I would match my devotion to drugs with any great devotee in the spiritual annals of the world. Yeah, I just loved cocaine. I would do anything for fucking cocaine. I would do anything with you for fucking cocaine. I gave up everything for it, and basically I took it as far as I could, to the point of shooting cocaine in my neck to initiate a departure from the body, with the hopes that at the last second I'd finally be free from self before I passed away as the body. And you know what? None of it was successful. I always woke up right back in the same fucking movie, accompanied by people in uniform, being taken somewhere I didn't want to be, to look forward to certain cases where I didn't appear in front of somebody in a big road, yeah? Or there would be a stop along the way into a hospital. So I basically was into hospitals, the court system, and uniform characters. So, yeah. So there was, in my case, there was an admittance to that innermost. So something finally realized, me getting run over twice in one night by the same car, didn't do it. Getting arrested quite a lot, didn't do it. I had no endpoint of the attitude of an alcoholic of my type, which is I'm willing to put up with any consequence tomorrow not to feel uncomfortable now. And no consequence was sufficient to change that equation. It wasn't. It just, as soon as I had a chance to get loaded in the hospital, I got loaded. As soon as I got a chance to get off crutches and do that, I did what I did. I did the same old, same old. Yet something finally put an end to it, March 21st, 1988. And you know what? That alcoholism has been quite subdued for 32 years, where the point is, even if its siren call doesn't seem enticing. I've never had a strong feeling or a thought about using again for 32 years. Now, in my case, that allowed me to start looking at the causes and conditions. Once the urge to drink and use and to escape was muted, I had to see what was reinforcing and energizing that desire to escape. What were the causes and conditions that I felt unbearable about? Where was I living from that was so inhospitable I would do almost anything to get out of there? And I had proven that. So I in my own case, it didn't get great. right away. It got great by what was absent in my life. I wasn't going to jail, this and that, but I was still acting out around holidays. I was putting my foot in my mouth. If there's someone really liked me and I liked them, I got very suspicious of their intentions. I was projecting shit on everybody in a way. I was super angry underneath because I had so much devotion to that way of life of drug addiction. I was super disappointed it had failed. And so that shit, I couldn't get a big enough cover to avoid it while I was sober. So I needed to have the program of recovery. I needed to recover from those prior conditions and circumstances and situations internally. And that's what AA has offered. AA has offered that from the idea of surrender to turning one's will and life over to the care of a higher power. That was my lifeline that I found the first week in recovery, and I've held on to that for the 32 years. That's the basis, I feel, of the platform of recovery. Not sober, not drinking and using, but recovery from the underlying causes and conditions. And what that happened is that led me, so here, we'll go to step 2. So step 2, I see it in a certain way. I see it as an observational step, looking at the time from whence you got sober till now. For me, it was like an 8-week period. And in that 8 weeks, I hadn't drank or used. I had left having to stay with someone who I didn't really like because I had no money and couldn't get my own place. I had found a room in a residence hotel, which I shared with a German tourist. And they would feed you there. And I got a job. I, talked my way into a job as a house painter, but I couldn't even paint a line because my nerves were so whacked. But the person who was the boss was just as whacked as I was, so I got a job. And so my life started to get better. And then I realized, hey, something had done for me what I couldn't do for myself concerning the insanity that preceded the first drink. And it uses the word CAME, which means that's just reporting on something that's already happened. So I came to believe that a power could restore me to sanity concerning the insanity that precedes the first drink. Why? Because I hadn't drank in 8 weeks. It was just obvious, yeah? It wasn't a leap of faith. The way of life was producing tangible results, and I was observing them, and it led me to coming to believe that this power that I was introduced to through recovery that actually facilitated its influence in my life, and it allowed its influence in my life to get established by the way of life of AA, going to meetings and doing things with people who were sober and hearing about sobriety from other people's point of views. All of that stuff had given me a new momentum to perhaps there's a better way, trusting something infinite. And I was moving away from the failed system. Yeah? And AA was the vehicle for that. The engine of it was the higher power, but AA was the vehicle. Yeah? The vehicle doesn't move itself. It has a power. And to me, that's the higher power. That's how I see it, and grace and stuff. So step 2, a lot of people look at it in a lot of ways. I just look at it as an observation of the program working for you, which now leads to the third step, which we're not going to go to today. So the first and second step, remember, most of the things they're talking about of how to be ready for all this, we've already been through it. Yeah, being convinced is the key. We don't need, many of us don't need any more evidence that what we've been relying on is a failed system. Any system that its main operating program is rationale, excuse, and blame is a failed system. It can't stand on its own results because its results aren't that good. So it likes to point out blaming either you or others, making excuses and rationalizations for its failings, yeah? And it's only through the identification as it that we stick so fucking long with it, yeah? And it also migrates with us into recovery. It does. I mean, the underlying disease is ripe in recovery. So that would be my take on 1 and 2. And of course, to me, the program of AA is a linear program. And so what happens with 1 leads to 2, 2 leads to 3, and then 3 is the jumping off point for the working steps, 4 through 9. And then after that work is done, then there's something to maintain, which is 10, 11, and 12. And 12 is basically the agenda of a way of life, which is, hey, you want to help people achieve sobriety and practice these principles in all your affairs. And I learned earlier, if I can't practice these principles in all my affairs, I limit my affairs for a while, yeah, until I get strong enough to practice them in all my affairs. It's just that simple. So that's my take on it. If you ask me tomorrow, I'd have another take on it. But that's it for today. Step 1 and 2. If I missed anything, forgive me. I'm not. I'm more really about the spirit of the message, not the letter of the message. So to me, the feeling of presence and reliance and assurance, which is so different than the feeling I usually lived from, which was fucking a lot of anxiety about when or how is the shit going to hit the fan, because I knew it was. And, recovery has established a new basis, which is an ease and comfort where it used to be irritable, restless, and discontent. That's an incredible transformation. And having a new attitude and a new outlook and a new freedom and a new happiness, I love the word new in there, because it's not like a redo or a remanufactured or a renovated happiness and freedom. It's a completely new one. Sort of like what Jesus says, some of this shit will pass our understanding. Yeah, we can't figure it out, and that's the good news. It just points out how small is our view, self-centered wise. So yeah, that's it for today. 1 and 2.
Brilliant. Thanks very much, Paul. Thanks for going over that again. So it's question time for everyone. And there's no hands up at the moment, but if you want to ask a question, I mean, I've got a little question.
David.
Go for it, Mike. Yeah, please.
Since the 12-step model became so successful in non-traditional addiction, there was even a book written about it by the Paul Williams singer, pop star from the 70s, that for not straight people, for non-customary definitions of addicts, that people really thirst for the 12-step model. And so that kind of speaks to how the bottom being raised. And I kind of wonder how the hardcore definition of an addict might learn from how other people don't need to be convinced by what they think of as really hardcore experience, like drugs, jails, institutions, and debt. So if that's the case, bringing that into AA or 12-step models, how do you think of that as speaking to us about letting go of the fear inspiration, the hardcore bottom inspiration?
Yeah, well, I think back then they found that for real addicts and real alcoholics, people that were terminally at a point of terminalness in a way, where their bottom was a lot different than a lot of people are being introduced from the 12 steps, yeah? Their bottom. So to that type of person, they needed to be convinced that what they're relying on wasn't reliable, yeah? Now, I think there's a lot of educational convincing going on now, so to speak, yes? Because a lot of people are seeing the warning signs before they're in the emergency room, yes? So basically, triage to them would be different than if you were bleeding to death, yeah, in the emergency room. So I feel AA has grown organically, and the 12 steps are open to a lot of different variations, where when it was first introduced to, it was really specifically about alcoholics in a sense, yeah? And then they found very shortly thereafter the codependency, or what, Al-Anon, because of, they also saw how the people who were around an alcoholic were exhibiting a certain disease aspect also. Yeah. So now I think it's just spread, and the bar has been raised, so maybe people can come to meetings and become convinced by listening to other people share. Yeah. Now, that's just how I see it. But for me, it was a being convinced, because I didn't. This wasn't like a slow dying off of one process and then a slow re-energizing of another process. It was like very clear demarcation. I was busily getting loaded, trying to figure out how I could get money to get high, and then something interrupted that. After about a 2-hour pause, when I had a chance, the disease rose up once again, try to convince the person that was helping me to get loaded with me again. She didn't go for it. And basically that was the last hurrah of the disease on an active level for 32 years. Yeah. So in my case, there was a sudden being convinced. Yeah. It didn't happen educationally, and I hadn't been to a meeting yet. And yeah, so I think I fall under that category. Yeah, so it's just an extreme version. And a lot of people would have reconsidered maybe after getting run over once by a car. Twice didn't even do it. I mean, obviously, I wasn't taking the cues from life. I wasn't picking up that perhaps this isn't working. I just, whatever. So, but you know, AA is much more. You see it in movies all the time now and TV shows. Back in 35, fucking nobody knew about it. Yeah, that's why it got really a lot of oomph by that little article in this magazine, something called The Post. That brought a lot of people's attention to it, and then now it's almost it's a mainstay in our culture, especially in America. It's in all the movies, it's in songs, it's fucking everywhere. Yeah. So if I came now, if I grew up now, by this time I would have been in probably 15 rehabs. The first ones my mother probably would have gotten me in. I would have no interest in what they were fucking saying, because I would think I know everything. And it may have even taken longer to get to what happened. Yeah.
My, my
But for
sponsor,
other people, they're open to taking that, you know, they can go to a few meetings and they realize they identify with the description, and then they realize they're an alcoholic, and there's no sirens or police rushing in or explosions. They're just in a meeting room, and wow, and then they never drink again. It's great.
my sponsor, my sponsor had been told that
What?
my sponsor had been told that 7 rehabs was the average nowadays, and he ended up going to 7 rehabs.
In rehabs. Wow. Yeah. Well, I speak at rehabs a lot back east, and you know, a lot of people want a lot of other people to get sober who don't want to get sober, like parents, and and so as you go to rehabs, and the biggest dilemma there is a total lack of interest. Yeah, they just don't think they have a problem. They're not even close to being. They're already convinced they don't have a problem, so they're in a being convinced already, and it gives them like a resistance to hearing anything new. But those people usually, you know, life's gonna bring them to their knees. Yeah, circumstances are gonna do it. That's what happens, really. If you don't take the you know the little nice reminders, you're gonna get whacked usually. something's going to demand your attention, and yeah, so yeah.
Thanks.
Okay. Cheers, Mike. Oh, G, over to you, mate.
Cheers, Dave. Good to see you, Paul. And I didn't see a lot of hands up, so I thought this step 1 and 2 is a very good topic for me, and I'll quickly get to it. But I've been through a round of steps with one sponsor, and I'm currently with my third sponsor. And I was on my step 5. I was reading out my step 4, and he said, "Stop, no," because all my resentments that I had on my step 4 were to do with my ego. And he said to me, by this point, because I was picking up new resentments that were going on to my step 4. So he put me back to step 2, because he said the unmanageability was quite rife in me. So I'm currently I've been on step 2 for a few months. I just want to ask you, Paul, is step 2 also to do with not getting into arguments when you're sober, and not like, because I've had a few, run-ins with people, and I tell my sponsor, and he's like, "You're staying on step 2. You still haven't been restored to sanity." Is that feasible? And also, there's a friend of mine from my home group who I'd like to encourage to ask you, to tell you what goes on in his head. His name's Harvey. Harvey, you should ask Paul a question, but that's my question, Paul, to you.
All right. Well, listen. Step 2, in the way I was taught, its target is concerning being restored to sanity, concerning the insanity that precedes the first drink. Now, that could be 30 years of insanity that precedes the first drink, but I mean the one that, illuminates the fuck it, and then there's an action. You drink or you use, yeah? Now, having anger problems or being, wanting to debate people, I don't think that has to do with the specific target of step 2, in my view, yeah? But then again, everyone has their own view. But to me, I think in the 12 and 12, they talk about steps 1 and 2 as reflective steps. 1, you reflect before you got sober. Step 2 is reflecting after you got sober, which leads you to believe that something has restored your sanity concerning the insanity before the first drink, because you haven't had the first drink in 8 weeks. That's, to me, that was the bone and the meat of the step for me, was observation, and it led right to step 3. Yeah, it wasn't I don't spend a lot of time there. I think it's a transit step. So there's the admittance of the first step, and then you see that something is working, yeah, after having a life of nothing fucking working. And so that should motivate you to be enticed by the next step, which is the third step of turning your will and life over to the care to that which is demonstrating it's working. So I see step 2 more as a bridge, in a way, from step 1 to step 3. That's my view of it today. So no, I don't. If you're argumentative or whatnot, that doesn't necessarily lead you to a drink. Maybe it leads you to get punched out or something, but it doesn't lead you to a drink necessarily. Yeah. So I don't see it that way.
Can I just quickly add?
This way is wrong or right. There's a lot of room to see things. That's the point. Like when there's sponsoring going on, the point is a delivery of suggestions, and then the sponsee's role is to try the suggestions and see if they work or not for him. If they don't work, you go back and maybe the guy brings some more suggestions based on the principle. And if they don't work or you're not doing it, then the sponsor should have a suggestion to you that you should find another sponsor, yeah? Because it's about you in a way. And are the suggestions working for you? Yeah. And if they're not, or you're not taking them, maybe you'll see that the next person you ask and you don't take it from them, you'll see you're the problem. It's not the sponsors you're picking. You just don't want to follow the suggestions, which to me would be going to managing, which is the first step. You're busily thinking like you can manage your own recovery, which is a dilemma when you're not managerial quality.
Yeah,
Yeah? Yeah. So that's how I would see it. Yeah.
yeah.
See, I see sponsorship as a verb, yeah? A verb. If there's a giving of suggestions, and then the person's meant to try them, and then report, are they working for them or not? Yeah, and then the suggestion should always be aligned with the principles of the program so that you're getting the real goods. And if something happens and you become too friendly with your sponsor, you may not want to have a friend as a sponsor. You may want to, have some distance or whatever. And you find what works, and it's working for him by just giving it away, and it's hopefully is working for you. So then you get it, so that you can give it away. Yeah,
Mm, mm,
yeah.
yeah.
Cheers, G.
And
I
if
just want.
Harvey wants to ask a question, let Harvey ask the question. No, G is not Harvey's middleman
Avi, ask a question.
to ask the
Tell me what
question.
goes on in your head.
Cheers, G. Cheers, mate. All right. And it's James.
James.
Hey, I was like, gee, I didn't see any hands up and I couldn't help it. But I really love the fact that we're going over 1 and 2 because it's a whole nother step that when I took it, a lot of the steps got caught up in the head and I didn't see them from this perspective when I first went through them. But I can say this, I was, before the pandemic, I was sponsoring some meetings that weren't attended often by the people that were the regular attendees at the club. It was like the Saturday and Sunday night meetings that were mainly attended by treatment centers. And most of them were really young and they didn't get there too soon at all. Like whatever they were doing out there got them ready quick. And, they were quite receptive to this message, even coming third party from your videos through me, poorly probably. They immediately grasped the idea that they were powerless over something that was working on them. And anyway, so it's just such a great message. It's so fresh, but it doesn't, like you say, conflict with any of the core principles.
Yeah, because it's about really. It's just did they give us a defined exact nature of the wrong? They described its activities, which is extreme self-centeredness, selfishness, self-seeking, and frightened. But I don't believe they got to the exact nature of the wrong. I don't. Yeah, what's demonstrating that selfish, self-seeking tendency? What's allowing that? Yeah, what's a petri dish for that to grow more and more in? I just don't, they didn't, it just wasn't revealed at that time, I don't believe. I mean, when I read the book, the description of the exact nature of the wrong is great. The activity, yeah, recognizing the activity of it. But I don't think I just don't feel they coined it sufficiently to see it as a foreign fucking pathogen, so to speak. Because they would keep saying we're manufacturing our own misery, we're imposing or self-imposing, yeah, our problems, we're the maker of our own problems. I don't believe that. That's not been my experience. It's not. Self has been the maker of the problems, but I don't believe I'm the maker of the fucking problems. I don't.
I just kind of see things, for me, you've simplified things into just being a power switch from the power that got me here to the power that I could use otherwise.
Yeah,
And it's super
exactly. Yeah,
simple.
perhaps there's a better way. Yes.
It took me about 10 years to open my mind to the idea it could be that simple, though. You could have given me this message at some point and I would have filtered it out probably. So I'm just so lucky to be hearing it now.
Well, that's the beauty of it. As long as the message is available, there's going to be at some point that you will be. That's the whole point of making it available. That's the whole point, one of them, is to have it available. So when someone is available, it will be there to be heard, yeah? It won't be hidden in some arcane, tablet in a fucking cave somewhere. It'll be in AA. Yeah. Yeah, it will be in AA. It will be available. So if somebody is available for it, it will work and it will illuminate that person's program. Fucking far out. Yeah.
Yeah, it's fresh again, dude. I'll mute myself and let someone else. But thanks. It's I will share this real quick. Sometimes it's funny how things work out, because when I was finally ready, I was the guy at the clubhouse that relapsed all the time. I'd show up and they would resent losing the coins, They're like, man, we're ordering a lot of these white chips, And then, of course, when I knew I was ready, there was something inside that just said, you're not picking up again. You just don't have the power anymore to pick up again. But none of them knew it, And there just happened to be a guy there that was there for about 30 days, and he was able to talk about the first step without repeating himself for 30 days. And he loved Chuck C. And so much of what he said back then, I didn't have ears to hear then, but now it comes back like he's standing over my shoulder, and I can hear the description of that other in what he was talking about all the time. So anyway, I just butted in again, but
Good on you, James.
I want to give Harvey a chance to ask a question. Love you guys.
Yes, James. Love you too.
I love following G, man.
Yeah.
My man.
Gee, yeah.
He's great.
Gee.
Oh, look, it's Dave. Good to hear from you, mate.
Oh yeah, thanks. Thanks again. Thanks for taking the hosting it, Dave. And thanks, Paul, again. So when I was a few weeks back, I was getting into the first started coming to this session. I was getting really sort of back into the book again. You get me interested in the book again. Listening to your talks and that, and this guy called me up, and said, out of the blue sort of thing, and so asked me about a guy I know. He asked me about sponsor him, and he was a serial relapser, you know what I mean, a serial relapser sort of thing, and been around sort of 5 or 6 years, but just kept. So we had a chat and that, and obviously, and he had a lot of spare time. I had a lot of spare time, and I thought, well, yeah, we'll go through this quite thoroughly, go through the book, go through the work quite thoroughly. So we went. Cut a long story short, went through the first 4 chapters, the doctor's opinion in the first 3 chapters, all on step 1, really slowly, highlighter pen, lots of questions, lots of discussion, really took our time really thoroughly. And so got to the end of sort of more about alcoholism, which is the end of step 1 in the book. And, and he was good. It was like a Friday afternoon, not long ago, like 10 days ago, 11 days ago. Called on the Saturday, he'd relapsed again, had a terrible relapse. The police had been round, drink driving, the whole shebang, right? And but begging me not to let him go and to carry on helping him, this sort of thing, And I was thinking, well, what do I do here? Do I, I always thought, if you haven't got step 1, you can't go on, So do we go back and repeat exactly what we've done again, type of thing, or do we carry forward somehow? I don't know. So I spoke to my sponsor about it, and we sort of said, maybe the conclusion we came to was to carry on the basis that maybe he was just insane and needed step 2 to restore him to sanity, so he could see step 1 somehow. So we did that. So we carried on into the chapter to the agnostics, etc. He's not drank since. He's now we've worked through. I mean, the other point was, Paul, right? And I just want your opinion on all this, really. The question is really just your opinion on this. Really, it just interests me, your opinion, really, kind of, if you get that as a question. But the other point I'd sort of said was, you know, when I spoke to him initially, he'd been around 5 years, but he'd never done a 4 step. He'd always got, you know, to step 4 and then just like, I'm not doing that, I'm not doing that. So I kind of took the approach that it was important to get him through 4 and 5. Do you know what I mean? He had a lot of problem with honesty, right? So basically, so we carried on from 2. We did 3, just working through the book. You know, he's done his 4. He's done his 5 now, very quickly. I did this quite, you know, not quickly, but not cutting corners, but he did a very thorough step 4 with a 5 or 6 hour session on step 5. So it wasn't like, you know, it was quite a thorough, you know, and we've gone on, and he's now working through his amends sort of thing. So I've taken it through reasonably quickly on the basis that was, you know, thoroughly, but you know, not hanging about. Because, you know, like in my experience with people like that, if you know, the longer you take, the less likely they are to sort of drop off or lose interest and not do it. So I just kind of like, you know, that whole point about, you know, just your take on that, really, if that makes sense, you know.
Well, let me say something and see if I'm catching what you're saying. Well, first of all, for me, the second step is the way it is because I never went back out. Yeah. So when I crossed that bridge, I never went back to the other side of that bridge of step 2.
Yeah, me too. Yeah.
Yeah, I haven't gone. I haven't. Life hasn't brought me into that situation. So the idea of I don't believe when people go out they lose all the wisdom. That you know, I don't believe it's like a vacuum of every bit of knowledge and wisdom. I believe it points out, usually emphasizes one of the steps. Yeah, step 1, obviously, because at that point of drinking, that's a result of managing. Yes, obviously. When the disease slips in and is managing the show, its managing will lead us to a drink usually. Yeah. So anytime something happens to somebody, it usually echoes like some notes of one of the steps was missed, so to speak. So to go back to that step, my you know, the first step is usually pretty easy to see. Because the convincing isn't the powerlessness over alcohol and drugs, it's the managing. Yeah, there's the mental state. Its whole story is being the manager of our affairs, basically. It appoints itself to that job. And so a lot of it is always rooted in that and or emphasizing the third step, where a lot of times the third step is done almost like a transactional deal. Yeah. You're still under the occupation of self, so self sees it as a transactional deal. I'll turn my life over, but not about this, or this, or this, because I want to get a girlfriend or I want something like that. Yeah? And usually that doesn't go well. So I find usually what's going on with the person always is emphasizing one of the steps. Yeah, and so I try to bring them back to that. But I'm not one who says, all right, you went out, everything gets washed away, we're going to start reading the preamble and the foreword and go like that. Maybe, and I don't have any rote anyway approach. It's the person. So maybe for that one person, it would be good to start reading, you know, all the punctuations of the book, you know, and or how many times must is said, or you know, God or whatever. It matters. It matters about the person, and you ask that for that guidance to read what's the best way that person needs to be directed. That's how I go. So I don't have a manual of how to deal with people who I work with. You know, the working informs me how to do it. Yeah, yeah. there is something, let's say in the fourth step, where I got sober, they emphasized taking the opportunity of the fifth step to share secrets, you know, to share stuff that you probably had sworn you were never going to share with another human being. My sponsor made that very clear that it would be a good opportunity to throw anything out. And I feel like a lot of times the gap in someone's program is an unshared secret. You know, there's something that's sort of there that our way of managing it is like the elephant in the room attitude, yeah? And it always seems to bite people in the ass. So I took ample opportunity of having that person sitting with me and holding the space to share shit that I had sworn since I was 11 years old I was never going to share with another person. And that was quite relieving of me. And it also demonstrated to the parasite I was serious about sobriety, for sure. Yeah? So I hope that helped. I don't know if I understood exactly what you're saying. Sometimes the Zoom and the language, the accent is hard to follow. But I was close to it, yeah?
Okay. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, no, that's perfect. Yeah, no. Yeah, I'll try and talk a little.
Also,
I'll
I
try and
got
talk
a
a
New
little
York
slower next
accent.
time.
Isn't the easiest one either. When New York and English hit, it's a lot of misunderstandings.
That's great, Paul. That's great. Thanks very much.
All right,
That's,
thank you.
that's helpful.
All right, great.
Great. So Michael Stacey, and I've just seen a couple of dropped out, so feel free to raise your hands. No worries. So Michael, over to you, mate.
All right, thank you very much. Thank you very much. Paul, it's something that I was thinking about that I had a meeting yesterday at noon, a Zoom meeting, and we were talking about the idea of a reservation. And on page 30C, it says, if we are planning to stop drinking, there must be no reservation of any kind, nor any lurking notion that someday we will be immune to alcohol. Can you talk a little bit about reservation and the idea that perhaps that reservation and being convinced can't hold weight in the same paradigm?
Yes, but haven't you ever run into someone who believes they've been convinced, but you see that they're not? So a lot of times, it's not us having a reservation, it's a reservation having us, yeah? And without knowing it, there's been a reservation. Now, you can sometimes pick it up while that person can't. And then you're not surprised when they go back out and stuff. You could see it almost, that that hole was going to become influential sooner or later, yeah? So the thing is, a lot of what happens in us is happening without us knowing it, yeah? So that's the job of a sponsor in a way, is to sort of, you know, prod that little thing, that little discomfort, because the person has been very successful at muffling it, and just to see what comes out, yeah? And of course, it always leads to a step. So like it says, you know, you have to abandon all, you know, let go of all your old ideas, all these ways of saying it, is that we have to be willing, if not able, to abandon, you know. To me, it's abandoning what I'm not, really. And of course, the remnants of what we're not are hiding, you know, under a great disguise as us, really. So sometimes that's the beauty of working with people. They may see in you what you're not able to see in you, and you can see in them what they're not able to see in them. Yes? And then you don't have to point at it directly. You keep bringing them to a certain step. And then, like, in other words, like for me, I would recommend people, hey, you know, whatever secrets you got, bro, use this opportunity to put it out there. It won't be passed on to anyone else, everything like that. And, you know, and they may not even know what you're talking about, but you're hoping to coax something out. And then you know when someone's convinced. You do, I feel. Yeah? You know when someone's convinced. You know when they got the first step in a lot of cases. It's just a change. You know what I mean? Almost in their facial structure sometimes, yeah. That defiance is dropped. They see it finally. They're sick and tired of being sick and tired. And they're getting close to recognizing their role in things. And hopefully they'll take that farther and then see that their role in things wasn't even their role. Yeah, yeah. So, yes, so that's what I see. But then when you've experienced lack of reservation, you know when the mental state is having a reservation. You can feel it, yeah? You can. After a while of not having reservations allows you to notice when there's a reservation taking root. Where if you've got a lot of reservations, you don't know what's one more, you know? But now you've been relieved of reservation and you can recognize them. It's pretty good. And then that's 6 and 7 in my view. Yeah, I see that, and I ask that tower. You know, I state that, hey, I'm entirely ready for this to be reconfigured, and I ask that power to do it. So that to me is 6 and 7. To me, 6 and 7, at some points in your recovery, are the most active steps. Yeah. Yeah. There's, in other words, there's like, you know, where we live. Sometimes the garbage collectors put out a notice. All right, this one day you can put anything you want out. You know, fucking armoires, fucking broken refrigerators. So then you really got to take that opportunity and put the shit out. Yeah. So certain times you have phases in your sobriety when shit that you've been, you know, getting comfortable on top of start bubbling up, and it's time to let that shit go, you know? More is always revealed. So, is that all right, bro? That's good?
Sorry, Mike. Yeah.
Oh, no,
Yeah.
thank you so much, Paul. Appreciate you.
Oh, yeah,
Appreciate it a
bro.
lot.
I appreciate you, Michael. Take care.
Okay.
Okay. So, Mike Oldfield, you had your hand up. Do you want to ask a question, mate? Yeah. Okay. There you go.
Hiya, Paul. Hiya, Paul. Great to see you. I've recently been coming to this meeting. Paul, can I just confirm in my own head that the exact nature of the wrong is unmanageability, or am I missing something? Sorry to.
Now, to me, the exact nature of the wrong, let's say, is taking yourself to be the one that's managing. That's for sure. So I would say it's a mistaken identity, so to speak. Yeah? That the narrative and the way the thoughts are held are being used to reinforce that mistaken identity. What you are doesn't need to be identified with. You are it, yeah? You're identified with what you're not. Yes? And so we're looking at, even when we study self, we're looking at it from self. That's why it becomes self-knowledge. It doesn't go anywhere. Literally. Yeah? You have a lot of knowledge, like being a professor of holes, but you find yourself at the bottom of holes a lot. So what's the point of the knowledge, really? Knowledge to me only has one value, which is leading to no need to have any more knowledge. Once you know what you're not sufficiently, you don't need that much more knowledge about it. It's all mechanical anyway, yeah?
Yeah.
Don't you feel like, you know, the word resentment, the number one offender in our lives as an alcoholic? The definition means again, yeah? And sent is to feel, resent. So basically, what we're doing in this interpretation of from what we're not is re-feeling all day, rethinking, rehashing, re. It's like a repeat. And the only problem why it keeps getting syndicated for a new season, it's about us. It's presented as being about us. So we like the star character of the show, but basically the show sucks, you know. If you lose interest in the character, then you'll be more than happy for that fucking syndicated show to be replaced with something new, maybe like a wildlife show or something, something alive and present, yeah, instead of the same old fucking same old, you know. You ever do a journal like in AA? We used to do the 10-step, and I was a zealot around that in the beginning. I did a 10-step every night, and if you would read it years later, it basically started with "I'm afraid" and then a different fucking thing, but the basis was "I'm afraid." That was it. So basically, the underlying condition I seemed to be in all day was "I'm afraid." And then further investigation, I saw I'm afraid in actually what's not happening, which seemed totally insane to me. Yeah, I'm afraid that something I thought happened in the past is going to happen again in the future. I mean, months of writing. I mean, how much do you need to know? I saw it's just I'm afraid seems to be the manufactured condition, and it's looking for something to be afraid of. Yeah, it can't find it in the present moment, so it makes up what's not happening. So I can be afraid of destitution when I'm pretty well off. It's insane to me. Don't you feel like, I remember when I was a kid, you know, I was alive, yeah, fucking alive. And then slowly, you know, and you could really see life's happening. That's what was going on. And then slowly and surely, the mental state got developed, and suddenly life was seen as happening to me. And then self-centeredness just started acting like a vacuum, sucking everything in, and it wasn't going to my heart or to my knees or to my elbows or my muscles. It was going to the head. And it was making up a fucking story that seemed to win me over. And I lived in that state where every night I'd be starting off with, I'm afraid. Yeah, fuck. I mean, I feel like we all have the evidence. It's just how we're reading it. We're missing the point. Yeah. We're missing the point. If we really use language correctly, we would say alcoholism had us. We didn't have alcoholism. It's such a self-centered view. I have alcoholism. It sure didn't act like that. It seemed like alcoholism had me. It was using me for transportation. I wasn't taking my alcoholism to meetings. Or, you know what I mean? I was going to fucking clubs and jail and shit. It seemed like, oh, I'm a driver with an unruly passenger. No, I felt I was in the fucking boot, and the driver was alcoholism. I wasn't even listening to anything I was saying. So let's get it a little correct, at least, you know? It's just insane to me that we always put ourselves before a lot of shit we come after, yeah? So what was the most dominant thing, me or alcoholism? It was alcoholism. So let's say alcoholism had me. That makes sense. Just as a higher power has me now, yeah? And the higher power is respected by the lower power of alcoholism, because the only thing alcoholism respects is a higher power. And at the point of taking me over, I wasn't a higher power. Yeah? So now the AA program has introduced a quality that defeats at a day-at-a-time level the parasite. The parasite can't use me for transportation anymore. It can tell me its travel plans all day, but I'm not driving to where it wants to go. I'm not stomping out to my girlfriend's house. I'm gonna fucking finally tell you I hate your guts. No, I'm not doing anything like that. Yeah, hi dear, yeah, everything. Yeah, so the parasite has been contained quite well, and of course it's pissed off. Yes, so fuck it, it's not you. Yeah, send it to the kennel. We have an old story about, I don't think I've used it here, the Poopa Scoopa story. It's a deep story. There's a lot in it, but I'll tell you. So There's a guy who has a beautiful, beautiful house with a great yard, and he has a porch and then the yard. And the yard is so nice. People rent it for weddings. There's like lawn bowling tournaments. There's people have little flea markets on it. It's a big part of my life. And every day I jump off the porch with no shoes on, run in the morning dew, and I just do angel wings on it, just having a great time. And then one day I jump off the porch, I land in some shit, yeah? So I fucking look at my foot, I walk up to the porch, clean it off, and my first fitting myself around the new situation occurs, I start wearing shoes. Now I'm walking around the lawn and I'm finding a lot of shit all over the place, and it stinks. And I have this freaking wedding on Saturday. How am I going to clean this up before the wedding? So I got to call the people up, cancel the wedding. A couple hours later, I go back out. There's more shit, stinking to high heaven. So I just come in, close the door, and then I go to like a store, buy pictures of lawns, and I start reminiscing. Oh, it was great when I had a lawn, and now blah, blah, blah. And other people are calling me with the same problem. So we set up meetings where people can talk about, oh, how great it was, but now the whole place stinks. What are we going to do? And then someone offers the idea, well, there's this thing called a pooper scooper. So if you get to be pretty good, you can pick up the shit fast enough that you'll have a little bit of area where there'll be no shit. So you can at least enjoy like 3 by 7 feet. So, all right, this one guy gets pretty good at it. And so the other meetings about this topic hear about it, and they start asking him to go to the meetings, and he becomes a circuit speaker. And he's talking about pooper scoopers, and he's using 2 at a time, and he starts having like autographed models. He writes a book. He becomes a well-known person, and he has the answer to all the shit, picking it up as fast as possible. He has little autographed fucking models. His whole garage is full of them. He's doing talks on Zoom all day. And so he's got an answer, so to speak, yeah? Now, one guy comes over and says, hey, listen, I hear you have a problem. He says, no, I got the solution. So the guy goes, okay, and he's walking out. He says, find the dog, yeah? What? Find the dog. If you get rid of the dog, there won't be any shit. Now, you would think you would go for that solution, but this guy's invested in his solution. He needs the shit to be a circuit speaker. He needs the shit. No one's going to buy his books. So oh yeah, no, I don't need that fucking answer. I got an answer. This is what happens. Yeah? Fucking find the dog. But the thing is, in this case, we're the dog. So the only solution we can entertain as the dog is picking up fucking shit as fast as possible. There's gonna be shit, but so let me pick it up because we're identified as the dog. That's the dilemma. Yes? The exact nature are wrong. If you're sick of picking up shit, get rid of the dog. You're not that. Yeah. You can't get rid of the dog as the dog. That's more dog. So self can't get out of self. And who wants to I don't want to, have pooper scooper tutorials on fucking YouTube, I'd rather just be free. So yeah, that's my little spiel.
Great.
That's great. Thanks, Paul.
Amazing. So there's no more questions, but I do want to ask Harvey, do you want to ask a question? I can't see you. I'm going to unmute you.
Harvey.
I think Harvey's gone. Oh, no, there you are.
Get rid of the dog. That's good.
Harvey, do you want to ask a question? No. No, that's it.
There is no Harvey.
There is no
Who's
Harvey.
next?
Right. So, all right. Well, I think there's no more questions. So
I'm so happy I got my pooper scooper story in. I was waiting where I could throw that in. One of my golden oldies.
we need to do the lion and the lamb one day as well. Yeah.
Actually, let me explain the pooper scoop. The real important point is how I become identified as the one who has the solution. which ain't the solution. Yeah. So therefore, that inhibits our openness to a solution if you already think you have one. And it's final, it can never be anything else. That's not going to grow. You're going to have a dead solution on your hands, which is a problem. Yeah. So.
All right. I think that's it. I think that there's no more hands raised unless anyone.
Good, good.
Yep. Yeah. Okay. So I think
Get
that's
out of
it.
school early.
Yeah,
Woo!
definitely. So
Say hello to everybody.
yeah. Before are we going to on Thursday? We're going to do like a chapter, one of the early chapters from in the
You
164.
want me
Right?
to? Sure. Pick out one. Let me know about 4 minutes in advance.
Okay. 2 minutes. Okay.
I'll
Fine.
speed read it and know what it is.
Cool. All right. Nice one.
This is just a charade. We're just going to riff, and if you enjoy it, I am enjoying it, and hopefully it gives you another angle to see the same things, because it's all on us, yeah? The freedom isn't going to be delivered to us, it's going to be expressed through us, yeah? It's going to be a work of art in a way. It's going to go through all the little dead-end alleys we think don't go anywhere. All of it's going to be used. All of it. All of it. There's not one thing wasted. There was never a fucking thing lost. There wasn't anything that was the worst thing. It's all been recycled under this power. It has, in my own experience. So, yeah, that's what the message is there is a solution. And it's not tomorrow or an hour from now. It's readily available right where we are with no requirement necessary to meet it. It's before our breath, it is. And it's way before thought. And it's not influenced by thought. It's not affected by thought. It's not waylaid by thought. It just is. And some of that goes a long way here. It does. Just allowing a little of that through can produce such a humongous effect that you'll have all these newfound abilities that were never not there, which is you'll be able to enjoy peace of mind. You don't understand the addiction of time doesn't allow us to enjoy much. You will be able to you will recognize stop, and you'll be able to pay attention to fucking what needs to be paid attention to. I mean, I have all this cactus at the house, and they bloom one time during the year, and they're not open for long. Yeah, you can miss them if you're just not watching, not looking. But for 2 days, it's marvelous. They are, compared to their size, it's like an outsized, huge flower coming off a little freaking thing. It's like the mouse that roared in the plant world, yeah? It's this little thing with this huge, incredible flower. It's mind-boggling. Now, in 3 days, it's not going to be available, probably for the rest of the year. Are you and I available? Yeah? Are we available? You don't think it to make it so. You observe it. You observe that you're available. Like my girlfriend, she's probably used to never being heard, so every time she starts talking, she says, listen. I say, I am listening. That's the natural on state. I'm conscious, so I'm listening. You know, she says, listen. I said, I'm listening. You know, I mean, but she has 4 kids that don't listen. So, but I'm listening. I hear what she says because I'm here. I don't need can you fucking translate that to me? I'm here. Yeah. I'm seeing. You know, it's not like I have to gather my force to listen. There's just listening. There's just seeing. There's just hearing. There's feeling. There's tasting. I'm so here. The mental state thinks I'm not. So it thinks I got to get here. I'm here. See, I already arrived before the mental state. The mental state comes after. So it doesn't realize what's already here. It doesn't, and it never will. It doesn't recognize what's always here. It doesn't. It does not recognize it. You're not going to convince it. It thinks it's the beginning and end point. It does. Yeah? But we're here completely. We just, the thinking seems not to make it so, but it's so. It is so. Yeah. This is just the obviousness of it. When you lose interest in all the insane fucking assumptions we've been believing for so long, and you just, the rules change. And now you're not starting from, I'm out of a moment, and how am I going to get into the moment? And it usually entails paying someone money. Teach me, please, how to get into the moment. No, you've been taught that you're out of the moment. That's the fucking thing to negate. That's the bullshit, yeah? You don't need to get into any freaking moment. You're here already. You need to see what believes it can be out of the moment, because it's not you. It's not factual. It's all made up. All made up. And then the whole idea, I've got to get out of self, implies we're in self, and we're not. That's why we use the term selfing, because selfing is a verb that implies you're a noun. That's what it is. And then we live as if we're a noun. But it's made out of the verbing. The selfing is like a suggestion of something that was never so, being already so. That's the trip. It has us convinced it was so already. It hasn't been. There's never been a self. There's no thing. Paul is an afterthought. Paul is like a stock version emblem you put on any car. So basically, so now it drives like a Ford, smells like a Ford, but when you ask it, it says, I'm Paul. But it drives like a Ford, smells like a Ford, turns like a Ford. And you know what? For you to realize you're not a Ford, first there's got to be a realization that you are a Ford. Then it lands, yeah? And then you see you're not. You can't see you're not. You can't. First you got to see what you're taking yourselves to be, and then you see you're not that, yeah? That's what AA did for me. AA was not a spiritual bypassing. It allowed a lot of shit that I was avoiding to catch up to me, and I realized deeply, I'm a fucking asshole, deeply, I fucked my mother over, deeply, and then when it landed, and I stopped trying to make it as unreal as possible, and I let it be as real as I thought it was, it revealed to me that it's unreal, yeah? And that I was trying to manage it into an unreality and was giving it more reality. I had no fucking idea until I did, and yet I've never not seen it ever since, ever. Never been fooled again. So, yeah, there's a solution. Thank you, everyone. Pleasure to spend some time with you. Hope to see you Thursday, and we got Wednesdays and Saturdays. This is Thursday. All right, so they're all blending into one Zoom. So we'll see you Saturday. Saturday we have under another banner called Non-Duality at 1:30 Pacific Time, America. And then we have Wednesday night at 7 Pacific Time, and then Tuesday, Thursdays are the AA recovery things. So yeah, and yeah, and if it's only one of you here, it's going to keep going. This isn't a mass. Yeah, we're not shooting for whatever. I don't speak unless there's 65 people. Yeah. Or 15 donations, either one. All right, I'll see you guys. Such a pleasure, James, everybody. Let me say hello. It's nice to see you, Zoe. Paul, another Paul. Julie, I know it's not, it's Rob. James, SM, nice to see you, SM. Not sadomasochism, is it? No. SM, Jim and Trish. Let's see. We got Jess, yes, Spiritual Subpoena. Stevie, Mickey. I don't even need your name, Mickey. I see you right now. We got Kristen there. Kristen is against the wall. Get against the wall, motherfucker. No. I hope you never heard that in your life, please. Frank Liddy, he's in the Pink Floyd triangle there. He's definitely on the other side of the moon. Kurt, nice to see you, my friend. Look forward to going down south. Paula MC. Mike Oldfield, Tubular Bells. G, the land of questions and answers. Sonny, my Dallas little, and Daz. You feeling better, Daz? Good to see you. Dave, nice to see you. Relieved from the bondage yourself as a present tense state. Yoo-hoo! Suke, Dimitri, my little character there. Yeah. You look like you're in a dentist office getting ready for some root canal. Don't worry. Take the anesthesia. Dennis, nice to see you, Dennis. Michael, thanks for your questions. Very helpful. Mario, nice to see you. I just lost, here we go. Anna, nice to see you, Anna. Howard Brady, and Howard Brady, the Brady Bunch was filmed in Oklahoma City. I didn't know that. All right, and everyone else who plays anonymous, Julie, the writer of all writers. We got Jonathan Petch, George again. George is definitely in the void. Dave Lovell with a lovely anonymous person there. Anna Ramsey, nice to see you. Hey, thanks everybody. Pleasure. Take it easy today. Bye.
Thanks, Paul.